morning. On behalf of the Netherlands Food Partnership, I would like to welcome you to World Food Day. It's the first online World Food Days professionals event, and more than 400 people are joining us today from home. We're very pleased that this online event enables us to address the urgent need for action on Sustainable Development Goal 2, and we're very grateful for all the partners who have contributed to today's program. The theme of the event is Smart Solutions for Healthy Diets, and we hope to inform and to inspire you with a full and interactive program and with afternoon sessions. If you'd like to interact, you can do so by using the chat, and if you would like to leave messages on social media concerning today's program, please use the hashtag WFD20. And now, after this practical information, it's time to open the event officially. We are very pleased that Ms. Carola Schouten, the Dutch Minister of Agriculture, Nature and Food Quality, one of the key partners of World Food Day, has agreed to give us the following opening message.
Dear participants, welcome. And a special welcome to the ambassadors and foreign embassy staff in The Hague. This year's World Food Day emphasizes the importance of global food security. The corona pandemic exposes weak spots. Like in most crises, smallholder farmers, the homeless and the poorest people are hit harder, in particular in developing countries. These countries now face a decrease in nutritious food and an increase in hunger. We also are concerned about nature's condition, knowing our lives depend on her. We know nature provides more of her wealth when taken care of. And this underlines our ambition to contribute to nature while producing, working, storing, exporting, and delivering food. And this is also an important part of the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. We must now do whatever it takes to enable global access to a maximum of agricultural knowledge and sustainable solutions. And I'm motivated to work together on this. I will involve you, wherever possible, in the national, the European, the bilateral and our multilateral arenas, and in the ambitious agendas of the EU, the FAO, the IMF and the World Bank. Our agricultural councillors will maximize their efforts to connect you, international institutions, NGOs and local entrepreneurs. I will take an active part to this end in the UN Food Systems Summit in 2021. And a pre-event will be held in Wageningen, November 23rd and 24th. Also, our international strategy is being reviewed. We will look for regional and national branding activities and new ways to take advantage of agricultural knowledge and innovative solutions. In these times, our resilience and our solidarity are put to the test. But ambition and potential is in us, so let's respond. Have a fruitful World Food Day. Thank you.
The Netherlands Food Partnership, the NFP, is the host of today's program, World Food Day. And my next guest is the first director of the NFP, Ms. Myrtil Dansen. Myrtil, how wonderful that you are here with us today and that we have the opportunity to get to know you better. You recently returned from Latin America, where you worked and lived for 5 years. And we talk about smart solutions. So what smart solution inspired you recently?
Yeah, so if you look at this image, this is like one of the monitors in the Amazon area. And what struck me when I collaborated with these indigenous communities is that they're very fragile, actually. They're very small groups that protect natural resources that are important for all humanity. And what inspired me in the collaboration that I was involved in is that we were able to introduce new information technology that help them to collect better information about the invasions in the Amazon area. So we introduced drones, handheld, satellite images, and empowered them in that way to collect this information and use that information for public campaigns.
And why is this important for your current position as a director of NFP?
Yeah, so what is important is that the Netherlands Food Partnership aims to contribute to the second Sustainable Development Goal, end of hunger. And for this, it's important to work on different transitions. You can only reach end of poverty or an end of hunger by working on climate change, improving the sustainability of the agriculture sector, improve the access to water, work on gender. So actually it's a very important goal that needs to link like with all these different sustainable development goals.
Yes. And what is the purpose of NFP?
The purpose of NFP is to engage Dutch and international parties in coalitions where we want to work on urgent issues that contribute to the improved sustainability of the food system and the access to nutritious food. And in that way we want to contribute to the end of hunger by 2030.
And what does this mean in practice?
This means in practice that we do three things. We connect people, we connect networks here in the Netherlands and in low and medium income countries in Asia, Africa, the Mid East, Latin America. We connect knowledge with practice. We connect experts with practitioners. The second thing that we do is that we initiate and accelerate opportunities for innovations, for transitions. So we help to get access to funds and to experts to contribute to pilots, to organize meetings, to do assessments and to collect information. And the third thing we do is that we use that information also for learning purposes of these coalitions and also to define policy strategies for different actors that can help to improve the food system.
We saw a video behind us. I don't know if it's possible to show it again, because I think that's important for you to show.
That's right. This is our new logo. The NFP is a new organization, but we built on experience created already over the last 15 years on knowledge platforms for food security, and the work in different countries on strengthening local parties of the food system. So this is our new logo, and what you can see also in these images are experiences that we want to further develop in the dairy sector, in the horticulture sector, working in urban areas and rural areas, training young people so they can better engage into the food system and do all kind of initiatives.
Yeah. And I saw also a slogan. What is it?
Yeah, that's right. Our slogan is "Connect for Bigger Impact."
Yeah, so connect for bigger impact.
Yeah, our purpose is really like to engage parties to really improve like the impact of the different partnerships towards the SDG 2.
Okay. If our viewers would like to learn more about NFP, where can they find information?
Yeah, today we also launch our new website. So it's www.nlfoodpartnership.com. And there you can find information about our organization. But we also would like to invite you to interact with my colleagues and explain what type of information you would like to find on the website, because it's work in progress. Yes. And we really want to respond to the needs of the community.
Okay. So help them to make this website better and even more useful.
That's right.
Well, thank you very much for now, and we'll see you later at the table. And maybe if you have some questions for Mirtil, you can use the chat and she can answer them later at the table. Thank you, Mirtil. So the next contribution is a wake-up from Ikenna Azuike. He's a creator and presenter of WhatsApp Africa, Planet Nigeria and the Post-Racist Planet. Ikenna will share with us the urgency for smart solutions for healthy diets.
What's up, people? Today, the United Nations is celebrating the 75th anniversary of World Food Day. Yes! Bam, bam, bam! High five, high five! Amazing news, right? Oh, sorry, hold on one second. Yeah, hey, what's up? No, I was just telling everyone how amazing it is. It's the 75th anniversary of World Food Day. That's like super. super cool. No, I didn't know. What? What do you mean we're nowhere near reaching our goal for zero hunger by 2030? Nearly 700 million people were undernourished in 2019? Okay, jokes aside, that's ridiculous. I know we're smart enough to think of a good solution here, but let's break it down first. Millions of people go hungry not having a clue where their next meal is coming from. And that happens every single day. And often they're living in the same countries as many of the 2 billion people worldwide who are obese. Crazy, right? It's like being in an all-you-can-eat restaurant with your mouth zipped up. All this shows that we have structural problems in our global food system. And you guys know the reasons already. Poverty, conflict, economic crisis, climate extreme, food waste, and now, thanks to COVID-19, a global health crisis too. And in an attempt to save people from the virus, we're increasing the number of people facing acute hunger. And this all feeds the problem of food insecurity. It's mind-boggling. And the clock is ticking. I don't have a watch, but if I did, it'll be ticking. Time stops for no one. Unless you're a time traveler, I guess. If you were Marty McFly and you had a time-traveling machine, I guess that could be pretty cool. But time would still tick. Anyway, you get the message. There are only 10 years left until 2030. That's 10 years to meet Sustainable Development Goal number 2. And we need to achieve food security and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture. 10 years to make what seems unimaginable reality, providing everyone with a healthy diet. There's no time to lose. So what are we celebrating today? The answer is simple. It's you. We're celebrating you and millions of other people across the globe who are working their asses off to change our food system for the better. To make sure everyone has access to good and nutritious food, with ambitious plans, partnerships, and smart solutions that actually work and can make a difference. Let's make today a turning point and rethink the way we produce, process, market, and consume our food, starting now on this 75th World Food Day. Please join the conversation and let today's ideas and discussions feed and accelerate your own smart solutions for healthy diets. For everyone, everywhere by 2030. Or sooner. We can do better than 10 years. We can go really fast, like Usain Bolt speed of change. Actually, how fast is that? Maybe I should be more ambitious because he's a human. Maybe we should go like cheetah. How quickly do cheetahs run? Does anyone know? Can you tell me? What's the fastest land animal? Fastest bird is probably an ostrich, but what's the fastest land animal? Should I be using that analogy rather than a human, a fast human? I think you get what I mean. Let's make today the turning point. Have a fantastic World Food Day show.
Our next guest is Ms. Kitty van der Heijden, Director General for International Cooperation at the Dutch Minister of Foreign Affairs, one of the key partners of World Food Day. We are delighted to have her here in the studio with us today and to hear her views on the current trajectory of SDG 2. Ms. Kitty van der Heijden, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And, well, what can I say? After Ikenna just told you what the challenge is. The challenge is incredibly urgent. And it's a bit weird, isn't it, that 41 years ago, actually, we decided that today, 16th of October, would be World Food Day. And in those 41 years, what have we achieved? Amazing progress. You know, in 1970, 35% of the world population was going to bed hungry. In 2013, that was just 8.5%. And mind you, in between, the population doubled from 3.5 to 7 billion. So we've actually achieved a major success. Or have we? Because in reality, since 2014, food insecurity is actually rising. And if we don't do anything, like Ikenna said, by 2030, we will have no less than 1 billion people going to bed hungry. We simply cannot afford that. So the question to me is not if, but the question is how and what. And so one incredibly important thing that we need to think about and be conscious of is that it's not just about production. It's about food systems. Because in fact, even today, we produce enough food in the world to feed everybody a healthy diet. The problem is that 1/3 of all food produced goes to waste or it's lost on the field. So for a sustainable solution, what we need is a system approach from pre-harvest to post-harvest, from CEOs to consumers. It's not just about farmers, it's about all of us. Secondly, which brings me to the topic of today, we need smart solutions. Smart solutions for healthy diets. Now, what does that mean? I'm an economist by background, so let me go by what smart means. Smart means it's specific, it's measurable, it's assignable, realistic, and time-bound. Can we do that? I think we can. Time-bound? Well, couldn't be clearer, right? We have the SDG and it's very clear. It says by 2030, there shall be no hungry people left in the world. And I cannot stress enough that 10 years sounds like a long time, but for a system approach, it's next to nothing. Because while we can produce more food, we have climate change, we have the population rising. It's actually becoming more complex every day. That's why it's so important that next year we have the World Summit on Food Systems, which finally brings together all these elements I was just talking about. Secondly, measurable, the M for measurable. Can we measure it? Of course we know it. It's zero hunger for everybody. But that means action for everybody, including everybody who's watching now. All of us can do something about an issue such as food waste. How much do we throw in the bin? Think about that when you cook next time. The S for specific. Are there specific solutions? Well, let's be honest, when you take a system approach, that's much more difficult. But it's the only solution. And why did the World Food Programme get the Nobel Prize this year? Because they brought to our attention the complex interrelationships between food and conflict. And that's not the only one. We need to think of food as a driver of biodiversity loss. Food as a major contributor to climate change. Food and poverty. There are so many interrelationships that we need to think about. And all of these things need to be embedded in local solutions. We cannot bring this from the outside in. It has to be homegrown and supported by us. Then the R for realistic. I want to believe, and I do believe, that we can actually do it. We can root out hunger. And this week we saw the publication of the Seduce study that studied 20 years of investment in food and agriculture, which showcases that we can actually do it, and it requires just 14 billion. At the scale of the world economy, that's next to nothing. Last but not least, assignable. Can we assign specific targets? Well, let's be honest, in a system approach, that's incredibly difficult. But you and me, all of us here, and all of you that are watching, we can assign a target to ourselves. We can all determine that we can be part of a partnership to get the skill to root out hunger. We can create those partnerships here and now. And when I look back next year, the 16th of October, I want to look back at a very successful summit on food systems. I want to be proud of those Dutch partnerships that have leveraged our innovative knowledge, that know what the solutions are that poor farmers need. I want you to be proud of yourself. And I want you to think, as we move forward, of what Henry Ford taught us many years ago. Coming together, like we do here today, albeit in a virtual format, coming together is a beginning. Keeping together over the next year and over the next 10 years, that's progress. But working together to deliver a solution that brings a dignified future for all, that is the real metric of success. Good luck to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Kitty van der Heijden. I have some questions for you, but we have to take a short break because I understand that there's a delay on the live stream and they really want to solve it because that's nicer for our viewers. So,
all right.
We'll be back in 5 minutes. Yes, and welcome back. Ms. Kitty van der Heijden, Director General for International Cooperation at the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
That's a long title, isn't it?
It's a long title. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. Obviously, we need to do things differently. Change needs to take place to realize the SDG 2 goals. Where does your ministry see most potential for this change?
Look, I think, as I just said, I think the solution needs to be multifaceted. I think the first thing really to realize is that we need to move away from a production focus to a system approach. We produce enough. It's how we have equitable access to nutritious food for everybody. That looks at finance, it looks at poverty, it looks at so many different things than we traditionally look at. That's one. I think the second thing is really not to come in with our solutions, but to find out what local solutions are that work. So we really look at who are the vulnerable populations, who are the poorest of the poor that we cannot leave behind. Yeah. Think from their mindsets, think from their abilities, bring solutions once you've analyzed that. And I think lastly, but certainly not least, food production is incredibly important for a dignified life for all. But it's also an incredible problem in the way we've organized it. major contributions to biodiversity loss, to land degradation, to water shortage, to climate change, to deforestation. So if we cannot think about food production and how we do that sustainable, we can bring food to everybody and wreck the planet.
Yes.
We can't get that. So it requires a big change, and that's why the summit of next year and the partnerships that we bring together as the Netherlands are a big part of really getting it done.
But how can Dutch policy contribute to this?
So Dutch policy actually tries to foster partnerships. We have innovative finance instruments that bring together private sector partners, civil society organizations, governments, and work with the local communities to bring the solutions that I was just talking about. So it's sustainable, it brings in the voice of youth, of gender, and it brings in the private sector, because that's our biggest conveyor belt to overall success. We can't do this with just farmers, we can't just do this with governments. We have to bring in everybody, which means bringing innovative finance to bring solutions to scale. And that's what we do.
Yes. We are still in the middle of a crisis, the COVID-19 crisis.
Unfortunately so.
Yeah, this has quite some negative implications on food and nutrition, of course. How can the world recover in a sustainable way?
Look, if I knew the exact answer to that question, I probably wouldn't be here. That answer is so incredibly difficult. I do think it's a major challenge, but it's also a major opportunity. We've never before in the history of this world, I'm an economist by background, moved in 17% of the global GDP as public sector into the economy for relief and recovery. A major part of that goes to food systems. If we use that money in the right way, we can both address climate change, we can reverse the trend of biodiversity loss and increase food production and equitable access to all food. So we can get it done. It is a massive opportunity if we choose to do it right. And I think the Dutch way of working with partnerships across private sector, public sector, civil society, actually can bring in new ways of thinking, ways that we haven't done before, to bring that much closer than we've done so far.
But we have to convince other countries.
We have to convince other countries.
We can't do it by ourselves, right? I mean, the Dutch, yeah.
But we work in the context of Europe, we work in the context of the United Nations. We have those conveyor belts.
Yes.
But we can, through applied research, showcase that we can actually do better than we've done before. And there are some people in this studio that will tell you how to get that done.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ms. Kitty van der Heijden. Please take a seat at the table, and we'll meet again later in the program. And
Look forward to that.
Yes, and if you have any questions for Ms. Kitty van der Heijden, you can ask them by using the chat. Yes, our next guest, I don't know where, our next guest is the General Director of the Our next guest is the General Director of the Social Sciences Group at Wageningen University and Research, Mr. Jacques van der Vorst. Mr. van der Vorst will elaborate on the transformative role knowledge can play on the road to SDG 2. Please, may I have your attention for Mr. Jacques van der Vorst.
Thank you very much for this introduction, and thank you very much for the previous presentation, which clearly identified the problem and the challenge that we have. The triple burden. We have a lot of people lacking food. We have a lot of people malnutrition, let's say, without lack of nutrients, and some have even too much, you know, the obese diets that we have on multiple places. We have to tackle that. What you also see is that a lot of the food insecure people live in unstable regions. And the COVID pandemic is not helping in that and might even worsen the problem. The COVID pandemic could result in 100 million people with extra lack of food. We have a highly intensified agriculture, resulting also in all kinds of climate and environmental challenges. The population increase up to 10 billion people in 2050, which means that we have to double our production. And indeed, like the previous speaker said already, we have a lot of waste in the whole system. Which means, indeed, I completely agree with the previous speaker, we need a food system approach. The world food system is in crisis, and we need transformations to ensure the availability of sustainable, healthy and affordable food in all places. But food systems are quite diverse, they're complex. We have many commodities, we're using many technologies, we have different environmental settings, different socio-economical settings, and we have countless actors in the primary system, all the way from farmers to processors to retailers, but also think about funders, think about governments, scientists and NGOs. And we have to work together in this. There are many interdependencies on this, on the actions, on the actors, And for example, producing more food does not automatically lead to a healthier diet. And reducing poverty doesn't mean that hunger is reduced. In other words, we need a systemic approach. We need a food systems approach. We need to go from isolated solutions to integrated solutions. We need to identify barriers and opportunities in those different systems. And mind you, that differs per region, that differs per location, that differs per supply chain. And also these chains are local, we have regional chains, and we have international chains. They also interact. In other words, we need an integrated, multidisciplinary approach, looking from multiple sides to the problem, to understand the dynamics and to come up with the right interventions. If you look at the transformations that are needed, they on the one hand are technical. We have a lot of at Wageningen University and research. We have a lot of research on improving technologies, which means higher levels of production with less environmental burden. But only improving, let's say, the production and not the rest of the supply chain, not creating markets, etc., doesn't work. So we need smart farming, we need smart supply chains, we need smart markets, consumption, and we need smart policies. We need an evidence-based insight, methods and tools that can be used in shaping these transitions. We need monitoring and evaluation. We need to check in living labs what the effect is of intervention so we can really show and prove what the solutions are. And most importantly, we need to find the answers together. It's from science, definitely, but we also need the knowledge and experience from local actors, from people in that supply chain. We need, as we say in the Netherlands, a Dutch diamond approach. We need to work together. Politician, business, government, civil society. And that's also why we support the Netherlands Food Partnership. And also why we work together in the Netherlands in the top sector approach. And we look forward indeed to the Food System Summit, where we hope to find more answers together and take this further. And finally, of course, also education, a very important one. We can develop solutions, bring them to practice, but in the end, the solution should also be implemented locally. So educating people on these things is very important. To conclude, we have a world food system in crisis. We need to go towards solutions. We need resilient food systems. And resilience is all over the way, from primary production to the markets. We need to invest in technologies, but also in socio-economic improvements. And finally, we need to link, let's say, the improvements we make in local systems to what can be done regionally and what can be done globally, because the food system is interconnected. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jacques van der Vorst, and we'll meet again at the table. And once again, if you have any questions at Mr. Jacques van der Vorst, you can do so by using chat. And if you have any messages you want to leave on social media concerning today's program, please use the hashtag WFD20. WFD20. Thank you. In 2019, Mr. Simon Groot received the World Food Prize, the Nobel Prize for Food and Agriculture, for his transformative role in empowering millions of smallholder farmers in more than 60 countries. As the founder and director of East-West Seed, he developed a global network of seed producers who are transforming the lives of 20 million farmers every year. They now have greater access to nutritious vegetables for healthy diets. We are very honored to have him here with us today, Mr. Simon Groot. Welcome to our program.
Thank you.
East-West Seed has reached millions of smallholder farmers. Could you briefly tell us how it all started?
It started when, as an old seedsman in West Friesland, not far from here, I was traveling in several tropical countries and observed that the seed quality was far below the standards we were used to here. And I just couldn't stand the idea that all these poor farmers in all these tropical countries especially were using substandard seeds. So it was really my basic instincts as a seedsman that I wanted to improve their seeds.
Yes,
that was the start of the whole thing. And then, of course, it was a long whole way, because the tropical countries have different climates and they have different needs of seeds than we have here. So we had to start from scratch again to train local people to take more interest in seed improvement. So we started to develop better seeds for the tropical climates in one country in particular. It happened to be the Philippines.
Yes.
Just because I ran into a very constructive local partner who could give me all the connections I needed to achieve these goals. And we started training young Filipinos.
Oh. And what challenges did you meet along the way?
Well, there was the usual understanding what's the use of good seeds. Many people have no idea of what the quality of seed means to the farmer. For the farmer, the seed is a very primary source of his income.
Yeah.
And it all goes about farmers' income. And that has been the guiding leads in all our activities. How can we come up with products and knowledge that can improve small farmers' income?
Yes. And where does your priority lie? Do you consider yourself a development aid worker or a businessman?
It's a combination. It's both. And I think we had to build it up as a business that could stand on its own feet, because in the beginning we were very lonely in this long haul development.
Yeah.
It started in 1982. That was the founding year of East West Seeds. So we are now nearly 40 years away, and we are still very busy in continuing our journey into Africa.
Yes, but Africa, of course, is a completely different country than the Philippines.
It is.
So what is the biggest difference?
Well, it's very hard to get into this kind of cultural description. Even within Asia, the cultures are all different between Philippines, Thailand, and India. And you have to adjust to what's there and work with the mentality and the systems that exist in every country. And then again, Africa, very predominantly, is the need for more farmer expertise.
Yes.
And that's what we are now really pushing very hard for.
So you have to educate them.
It's mostly a way of trying to support the African farmers in becoming better farmers.
So you have a system, I mean, your company
Yes.
provides these educations?
Yes, yes.
So
But we can only do that in a limited way. There is no functioning seed market now in Africa, so that's what we are trying to develop. But we need farmers that know how to handle better quality seeds.
What could help you now?
Well, I think we are always, of course, lack of funding. We can only cover a limited amount of territory in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Africa has so many different countries, and as I said before, every country is different.
Yeah.
And you have to come in with a system that is adjusted to the local markets, especially the culture and the mentality of the people. Africa has, again, so many different types of people. It's not just one big bunch of people. It's a lot of different people.
Yes. There's still so much work to be done. Action is urgently needed. How do you think we can achieve accessible and affordable, healthy diets for all?
Well, first of all, we have to have farmers that can produce more better vegetables. Vegetables are a crucial part of nutrition, quality of nutrition improvements. Mm-hmm. I think that's been one of the weaker points of the international systems, that they have been very much concentrating on staple foods, the carbohydrate foods, mm-hmm. like the grains and, yes. and the rice and the wheat and the African tuber crops. And
you need vegetables.
You need a complement of vegetables, yes. to make the food complete, yes. and have a higher nutritional value even, especially for health. And there is so much malnutrition, but a lot of that is not just coming from a lack of calories, but from a lack of money to buy better vegetables. It was said a few times before, I think it's the poverty in the African countryside that is a very big handicap now.
Yeah.
And vegetable farming can alleviate rural poverty.
Yeah.
And
Are you a hopeful man?
oh yes, I am.
Yes.
I wouldn't be here if I were not at my advanced age. I'm still hoping that I can continue our mission and that the next generation in my family and also the young farmers especially seem to be very keen to follow in our tracks. And when they see the chance to make more money, that's what they want.
Yes.
Farmers are keen to increase their income.
Okay.
First question, any African farmer we contact will ask, what's in it for me?
Yes.
That's the basic question.
Yeah. And there's a lot. There's a lot to gain.
Yes,
There's a lot to gain. Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Simon Groot. You will stay here in the studio. So if people have a question for you later in the program, you may be able to answer those questions. Thank you for this moment.
All right.
Yeah, our next guest, Stefan Peterman, is an architect and a researcher. Mr. Peterman was one of the initiators of the exhibition Countryside the Future at the Guggenheim Museum in New York. A unique exhibition addressing urgent environmental issues through the lens of architect and urbanist Rem Koolhaas. Mr. Peterman will give us a very brief insight into how smart design of rural and urban landscapes can be useful in order to achieve accessible and healthy diets for all.
Thank you. Indeed, my name is Stefan Peterman. I've been working with Rem Koolhaas for the last 15 years, and in the last 10 years, increasingly more apparent on how important the future of the countryside is for our global future. It's also a part of a world where architects are less present at the moment, and this is something we want to rehabilitate. I think seeing the urgencies that all the previous speakers have already addressed, there is a very strong need for new collaborations. As a result of the Guggenheim exhibition earlier this year, we've used it as a kickstart to initiate also new relationships between creative thinkers and designers and the food players. One of the things we hope to explore also in this collaboration is new ways of thinking about SDG 2, which we hope to do later as well for the Food Summit together with the Design Academy in Eindhoven. We will now show a small clip of a documentary that's being made at the moment by Sugar Rush Films, which shows an element of our exhibition, which is outside the Guggenheim at the moment, still growing some of fresh vegetables, making very clear that smart solutions are a part of a bigger transformation we need in how we look at food and how we integrate it into a larger societal challenge and also making new solutions visible.
My name is David Litvin. I'm from Tel Aviv, Israel. I'm a crop specialist, indoor crop specialist at 80 Acre Farms. There's an exhibit at the Guggenheim Museum here that's called Countryside the Future, which is curated by Rem Koolhaas. Did this exhibit at the museum discussing sustainability, the countryside in general, and migration of people into cities. They wanted me to come here and live here for 6 months and do this. I wasn't going to turn it down. People are like, what the heck is this? And I explain, and that's what I'm doing here. That's my mission here, is to educate. There you go.
That's so beautiful.
There's nothing on them. There's no pesticides. There's no chemicals. So you could just pop them in. We're able to grow inside, and we're not dependent on the weather.
Right.
In a few years, I want a farm like this in every neighborhood, because not only is it going to give the local food, we're able to give jobs to the people in the community. They're good?
Oh my God. That's a tomato.
Yeah, we like them. We're pioneering an industry. Not me specifically, but there's a few companies leading this industry, and it's just in the beginning. We're just getting started. This industry is just getting started.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Amazing, huh?
Amazing.
So the fascinating things about hydroponics is the control I have of the root environment and the nutrients that the plant has access to. What we do is exclude everything and add everything back in a controlled manner. What I'm talking about is a sole source environment, meaning every aspect of the environment is controlled by the grower. Not only I could control flavor and the morphology with the nutrients that are in the roots, you could play with the shape of the plant and the texture and flavor and nutritional value. And the thing is, it's consistent. It's not like 1 week the tomatoes are sweet and the next week they're not. It's every week the tomatoes are the same sweetness. Every week the tomato is the same 15 grams. And then with the control over the environment in here, I am able to grow in higher densities. I could grow more plants per square meter and just adjust the environment to be able to treat that amount of plants. It's a standalone module. The only thing that it's connected to is the electrical to the power. So where my dehumidifiers are creating my water. They're pulling the moisture out of the air and filling up my tanks. I could put this thing in the desert where there's no water and pull any humidity that's out of the air and create water. This is a bigger picture than just, oh, we're doing urban farming. It's not. We need to change the way we're doing things, especially with industrial farming. We're consuming nutrients that are going to run out. We're consuming water that is extremely precious. And we're using mass amounts of chemicals that are draining into our soil. And we need to remember that the farming community is the beating heart of humankind. They create food. And even these industrial farms, at the end of the day, they're trying to keep up with the food consumption. And I'm producing over 100 pounds every week. That's 12, 13 cases every week. And at a time that I literally go to the store and see that there's no produce on the shelves, it's meaningful enough for me to not even question it, to stay here.
Yes, and if you are inspired by the story of Mr. Peterman, you can join his breakout session later this afternoon. Welcome to our guests around the table. You've met them all before, Mr. Jacques van der Vorst, Miss Kitty van der Heijden, and Miss Myrtil Dansen. Before we start, I'd like to inform you that you may ask our panel questions via the chat. Please be specific who you are addressing your question to, and please be brief. And we have already some questions. I see a question for Kitty from Eric. How do we seduce African countries and leaders to adopt food system approaches without it being yet another Western approach? Erik Smading, Wageningen University Research. Yeah. Well, Kitty.
Hi, Eric. I think your question is a very valuable one, but it sort of presumes that African leaders would not subscribe to food systems approaches. And that's actually where I would like to question you. I just came back from 4 years in Ethiopia. And what do we have in Ethiopia? You also have the African Union, the collection of 54 African countries. I sat in almost every ministerial as an observer. What do I hear? We need different solutions. We need food system solutions. We need to make sure that we achieve leave no one behind. What does that require? Not just production. It requires engaging with women. It's looking at power relationships. It's looking at technology, micro irrigation systems, because water is becoming scarce. It's looking at deforestation, because that has an impact on precipitation patterns. So that type of thinking is already very firmly embedded, I would say, in the hearts and minds of most African leaders, and it certainly is in the African people that suffer from malnutrition. They know that they need more than just production. They also need finance, they need access. So I actually think that the African farmers and their leaders know more than we do. We can help them bring certain solutions, but it's homegrown from Africa, and I think we're already there.
Mirtil?
Yeah, I think I would like to add to that, because what you see is that a lot of smart solutions have been developed for high-income markets. So what you try to do is like a very high-tech solution with big margins, making it attractive as a business model. What is needed, like in low and medium-income context, is to bring these solutions to a low-tech environment. And the interesting thing is that if you translate it to that context together with the local parties, you can help them also to leapfrog from something that is not there yet to something that is very appropriate for the situation that we need to attend right now. In this moment in Europe, we use a lot of solutions that have been developed for crises that were in the past. And it's very difficult for us to make like a big change there. Yeah. In the African and Asian and Latin American context, you can start in some situations from scratch, but you have to adjust it to the local context.
Yeah, Jacques, you have anything to...
Yeah, if I may add to my colleague, and he knows very well, I think, if you look in the past, a lot of solutions and technologies were developed and were indeed brought to Africa in the sense like, you know, here's the solution. And I think the main changes that we have already implemented in the last years is to work together and really much more with local partners. And that will be increased much more because indeed, if it's not invented up there, if you don't have the whole food system approach and bring the different stakeholders together, it won't work. So I think we're on the way. We're not there yet indeed, and we have to do it together.
Yes. I see a question. What will NFP do to invest in a new generation of skilled, interculturally competent and inspired food system professionals to co-create locally relevant solutions? Well, you already answered it.
Youth is a very important issue. Bring youth into the agri-food system. Give them the opportunities to learn how to produce, how to trade, how to access local markets in the appropriate way, and make it also attractive for them. I've been working also in Ethiopia, as Kitty did, and there you had really like a boom of young Ethiopian people that studied actually abroad that came back to Ethiopia because they found it attractive to work in the horticulture sector. Why? Because it was a combination of local production with modern technology. So the NFP works already on capacity development for youth. We have a collaboration with the IKEA Foundation to work in East Africa with youth on agribusiness development. We have been talking also with East West Seed and with some other organizations to see what we could do in Asia. And we also are responsible for sending youth from the Netherlands to developing countries for them to learn what it means to work in that context.
That's interesting. Sir Richard Attenborough recently mentioned in his testimonial movie the Dutch agricultural as an example for the world. Intensive agriculture. How do you see this, Jacques?
How do I see it? We just said, indeed, food systems are very different. If you look worldwide, there are different challenges in all kinds of places. If you look at the advanced systems we have in the Netherlands, they are indeed perfect, let's say, to produce those products with low environmental burden, with less water use, less chemicals, etc., etc. So that's top. But it doesn't mean that exactly that solution should be implemented everywhere. But bits and pieces of it can be used in different places. Yeah. So it's definitely about a leapfrog that we're making towards new technologies, and part of that can be used in many places around the world.
Okay. Can I add to that? Because I think we do have a lot of phenomenal technologies, like the drip irrigation, for example. Mm-hmm. But if you take that technology and you bring it to Africa, what happens? More than half of the population won't have access to it. Why? Because women don't have access to finance. They don't have a land deed. They don't have the title, the legal right to own land. So we can bring a phenomenal system and we cut off half of the population, which are women, because they don't have the collateral. The agricultural extension service never works with women. So in fact, if we don't go from a homegrown solution and then adapt our technologies, as Martilla was saying, to what is needed, we will never bring a sustainable future for all. So I think it really is about bringing our technology, but making sure that it's adapted to a local context and that we don't rule out anybody, because we want a dignified, food-secure future for everybody.
I thought maybe Simon Groot has something to add to this, because...
I do.
Yes, I give you the floor.
I hear a lot of things that we have been struggling with in the last 40 years.
Nothing is easy.
And we learned it the hard way, country by country. And for instance, the example of drip irrigation is a very good one, because it is an obvious need for this world that is short of water in many ways. drinking water, but also water for crops. And drip irrigation is one of the best answers. It was designed in Israel primarily for high-tech situations, usually good skilled areas. But in Asia, we discovered that, for instance, the Thais are quite inventive in making good use of something new. And they came up with small-scale drip irrigations that can even serve and becomes affordable for a 1,000-meter farm. And these mini drip irrigations designed in Asia are a far better approach for solving Africa's problems than something that comes up in the Western world.
Yeah,
that's what
it's a Thai system to produce small-scale, high-quality drip irrigations. And also the water that goes with it, you need to have a source of water, of course, and a pump to bring the water into the drip system. Yeah. So it's an integrated thing, and it was a Thai cleverness design that solved the problem.
Yes. Jacques?
Yeah, I just want to make the linkage towards the statement I made regarding the local improvements that should take place, the regional ones and the global ones. And the food system is an interconnected global system. And a lot of countries, even the Netherlands, we don't have all the products up here. No. So let's say it depends upon the solutions on whether you're looking local, international, etc.
But I think you have to be careful also there. I mean, we have a lot of knowledge on working in a very intensive way, producing a lot with all kind of technology, because we're a small country with a big population, and we have to do it like that. Many other countries don't have that specific situation. And there, I love the example that Simon gave also, because we can also learn a lot and bring like innovations from these countries to our context. I mean, the way that information technology is used in many African countries to connect farmers, for instance, with the markets and other parties, they went much faster in using these tools than we went, and we can learn from them. So it's very much also about learning from each other, being very sensitive, like, okay, what's happening here and how can we respond to that?
Yes, well, I think the strength of the Dutch approach is collaboration. So, Kitty, in what way you are working together in this field?
Look, I think we work in almost every way together. So for us, we work as a government mostly as a funder. But as a funder, I don't just work with NGOs or with governments. I believe very firmly that we need the private sector to come to scale, to bring solutions to everyone, to leave no one behind. And that's also why we are so supportive of the Netherlands Food Partnership, because that actually brings together a hub of the knowledge industries, the private sector, the CSOs, and it brings the public domain. And I think that's the only way, as we said, it is a system approach. We need better regulation, we need smart innovative solutions, we need the agriculture, we need to look at the sort of local cultural context, the power relationships, the gender issues, and therefore if we can't get it together as a group here in the Netherlands, where is it going to happen? And quite frankly, I would like to say that we don't often compliment ourselves. No. But as the Netherlands as a whole, this is not me or the public sector, but we have been, I think, in the forefront, really a front runner in the diamond, as Jacques was approaching, bringing private sector, public sector, the world of science and the world of CSOs together to bring better and faster solutions. We have 10 years left. That requires a different way of working. And that's why the Netherlands Food Partnership is, I think, so important.
Yes, but I mean, and is it enough? I mean, what if we have only 10 years? I think there are some challenges we still will encounter. So, what do you think that is the most important thing we need to address now?
Yeah, I think that collaboration, for sure. None of these parties have the intelligence and the capacity to make this change happen, to contribute to these transitions that are required. So We have to benefit, of course, from the parties that do the things in practice and help them to be more effective in their own context. Companies working together with local organizations, etc. But we need knowledge institutes also to use all this rich information that is available and work together with front-runner researchers also in getting like more intelligence of where we can make additional changes. And we need policymakers also, not only for the funding, but also to help us to bring the insights that we get from practice to the multilateral organizations, to the Food System Summit that will be there next year. I mean, we can help to bring the examples and the knowledge. They can help us to bring them to the big agendas and contribute to the real transitions. This is what we need to do.
But don't you think that the time asks for a new policy? To design some kind of new policy? Chuck?
Nou ja, first of all, I think indeed the strategic plan of Wageningen is called Finding Answers Together, and that's exactly in line what has been set up here. Let's say we have to bring the knowledge together, and we have to educate the people as well. I think let's not forget about that. We can provide research, etc., but in the end, the knowledge of the people that are local, providing all the jobs in the supply chain all the way up to government, are crucial in making the change happen. And we are already, let's say, going from a much more individual policy on products, etc., to a food policy where we look integrally to what should happen in those countries. Whether it goes fast enough, that's another thing. But I think, like Kitty was saying, we're moving in the right direction.
Yes.
And I think, I mean, one more thing. I mean, we're now talking as if we're going to bring solutions to Africa. I think we also look at it from the other way around. We are a big part of the global problem. We are a major part of the global problem. If you look at how much, as I said, more than enough food is being produced already today to feed everybody in this world a healthy diet.
Yeah,
but we manage to either lose or waste 1/3 of all food produced. That is us, mostly, because it's food waste. In the restaurants, it's us at the home front that throw away food. That's something that each and every one of us can actually do something about. And so if you look at climate change and how that will feed into our ability to feed the world, we are the ones producing the emissions.
Yes.
So if we want a food-secure, sustainable world for all, we also have to look at what we need to do differently rather than just bringing something to others. So our responsibility counts as well.
Yes. And if I may add to that, that's why we are also interested as the Netherlands Food Partnership to engage the non-usual suspects. I mean, why do we work together with Rem Koolhaas and Stefan? Because it's not only about the actors in the food system producing, distributing and making the food available, but it's also about making everybody aware that we all have to do something different. And to show also together with designers, like what is it? What are the challenges and what are the opportunities in the food system? And how does it relate to us all as individuals? How can we prevent food waste? How can we also support to make this happen all together?
Well, Stefan, I mean, what role could smart design play in this?
Well, I think designers have an opportunity here to try to reread parts of what exists and try to look at it from a different perspective, try to, let's say, find a new way of speaking, a new way of showing, a new way of reading, a new way of also articulating the problems. I think we are indeed in that same boat, and I think we have some abilities that we want to test to see if we can bring something to the table that is not just decoration or not making a fine, nice ornament, but really looking at the heart of the issue and trying to look at the composition of the machine and trying to readdress that notion in a new way.
Do you have already an example of a smart solution?
Well, in the exhibition we show at least already a glimpse of how these global complexities work, how all these different types of policy making intervene, intersect, and how sometimes they are at odds and sometimes complementary. I've been active in China a lot in the last few years, and there you see enormous new inventions in the countryside, in digital platforms that they've been building that connect you directly to, for example, farmers in the the field, where from your Beijing home you can just speak with a farmer live. He's in the field and he's selecting apples, and you can tell him, I want this one, this one, this one. Send them to me, and you'll get them the next day in Beijing. So it's also really about finding new ways of connecting with the countryside and with the food sector. Also an opportunity for corporates to really find their consumer again, because they are all doubtful of these larger systems and their own position in it. So I think there's a huge opportunity to really fundamentally revisit how we think about food.
Yes. Kitty?
No, I completely agree. And I do think we've actually made major progress. And just a few examples of how we have, I would almost say, changed the world in terms of getting to a more food secure system. If you look at the World Food Programme, they just won the Nobel Prize. Yeah. It used to be that they would buy bags of food from the United States or Europe and then transport that to Africa. Now what they do is they have, if you will, a local credit card. It's obviously not MasterCard, but it's sort of a local credit card. They give them to refugees and displaced people in humanitarian emergency situations. And they can buy 25 of the essential products at local farmers, with local shops. So you support the local economy. What we do now with modern technology, we use a lot of satellite data. How can we bring that to farmers? Well, farmers almost everywhere nowadays have a mobile phone. So we can bring all those data and inform farmers when do they have to plant those seeds, when do they have to harvest the crops.
Fertilizer.
In my own world, we used to have projects on average for 3 years, right? Because that's sort of the political cycle. Now we think you can't bring system change in 3 years. You have to take 10 years to do that. So we are adapting. I do think we are changing. We do need to go faster. But it's not as if we haven't made, I would say, major progress. But it's up to the Netherlands Food Partnership and all the partners in there, I think, to push us to do even better and go even faster, because as 10 years is next to nothing.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I just want to emphasize the word smart has many connotations, of course. You gave already one, Kitty, earlier. Smart farming, etc., also relates a lot to precision farming. We talked about drip irrigation, etc., etc. Smart, of course, can also be linked to science. I think that's also quite clear. But I think the essence is also the integrated solution, and go back to the food system approach, the fact that we have to do it together to come to solutions. So smart has many connotations.
Okay. I have one question for Simon Groot from Maya. Do you believe in urban food production, and do you develop seeds for such, for urban food production?
I think that is very far off in most of the countries we work in, because they require very high investments, and the cost of the final produce will be considerably higher than what we have nowadays in the traditional systems where you use the sun as your main source of energy. And you cannot replace that unless you pay a lot of money, replacing the sun.
Yeah.
And that's why in many practical situations, I think it is not an answer. I think in an urban society like Singapore, it seems to be moving along.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the land. And they insist on producing their own very clean leafy vegetables mainly. I think the future is mainly in leafy vegetables. And Asia has far more, and Africa also, leafy vegetables as a major part of their nutrition.
Yeah.
So the future of leafy vegetables grown in an artificial farming system has a future in high-density urban areas, where people have the money to pay for what they want. But I think in rural parts of the world, which are the great majority, it is far away still.
Okay, thank you. Time for one more question to all three of you. What will be your first action after today? Kitty?
Make sure I don't throw away food today.
Yes. Jacques?
Bring our solutions to our partners, and especially also to the local partners that we have worldwide.
Yes. With you?
Next Tuesday I have a meeting with my new team, and we work on the strategy plan 2021. So we will use the suggestions of this meeting also to be inspired and think about what we're going to do next.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your contribution. around the table. Thank you very much for answering the questions also from our viewers. We are going to have a short break now, and after that we'll be back with some very interesting contributions from young professionals, and we will hear what their smart solutions are. See you all in a couple of minutes. Welcome back, everyone. As we all know, young people around the world are concerned about the future of our planet. It would be interesting to see what their perspective is on smart solutions for healthy diets. Today we have several events that focus on the role of young people and young professionals and the role they could play in becoming part of the solutions. NFP has organized summits on youth and agroecology in Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda and Rwanda. And we are pleased to have a representative from the United Community of African Students in Wageningen here today. But before we continue, we will first hear from a representative from the Dutch Youth Council, Eva Kofferman.
Hi everyone, my name is Eva Kofferman and I'm the first United Nations Youth Representative on Biodiversity and Foods for the Dutch government. Quite a mouthful, so what does it mean? I speak with many young people in the Netherlands to hear how they think about these subjects and take that input with me to UN conferences, to which I travel along with the Dutch delegation. Two important examples are the Food System Summit and the Convention on Biodiversity that will both take place next year. And also to national policymakers. I guide the interaction between the Dutch youth and the Ministry of Agriculture, Nature and Food Quality, and see it as my main mission to make sure that my generation is heard. The youth is the future. Also when it comes to smart solutions for healthy diets. To give you an example, I would like to give the digital floor to Philippe Veleda for him to tell about the smart solution he is working on.
Hey guys, my name is Felipe, I'm from Brazil, I'm 27 years old. I'm the founder of Free Nature, a Dutch organization working on regenerating 1 million hectares of land worldwide by 2030. We work a lot with regenerative agriculture and agroforestry, so that we can tackle climate change and deforestation issues worldwide through sustainable agricultural practices. It's a huge pleasure here to be speaking to you so that we can find solutions to mitigate climate change and make regenerative agriculture mainstream. So it's a huge pleasure. Thank you so much, and let's regenerate the world together.
Thank you, Philippe, for showing us how we can work with nature rather than against it. As a final note, I would like to stress that biodiversity and climate change cannot be disregarded on the road to food security. We will not be able to feed the world if we fail to protect ecosystems and limit the global rising temperature. The Earth offers us plenty of services, but it will not be unlimited if we continue to produce and consume like we do now. Therefore, I'm speaking on behalf of my generation and the generations to come, when I thank you for critically reconsidering the global food system you have created. Happy World Food Day.
And now I'd like to introduce you to Jacqueline O'Reilly from UCAS, the United Community of African Students. Jacqueline, how nice to have you with us here today.
Thank you for having me.
What are you studying and what brought you to Wageningen?
I'm studying Masters of Science International Development Studies at Wageningen University and Research.
Yeah.
One of the things that motivated me to come and study at Wageningen is because of the university reputation. It's world-renowned in the field of agriculture and nature conservation. Yeah.
And why do you think it's important to transform the food system?
Food, first of all, I'd like to discuss what food system is first. Food system is a complex system with a web of activities happening right from production up to the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, there are so many changes that are happening in the food system. And I feel that we as young people, we need to be given that voice to be able to tap in our resources in terms of innovative ideas so that we can be able to have a sustainable food security in the society. But with the current global issues that are happening, the youth are still the world is not ready for the youth to take up the opportunity.
The world is not ready?
Yes, the world is still not ready for the youth. This is because when you look at in terms of, if I can refer to the African perspective, we still have a lack of regenerative agricultural policies, whereby we find that governments are not ready to give youth the opportunity to tap their resources.
Yes. Can you elaborate on that?
What I mean by regenerative, progressive policies is that most of the policies are not inclusive of the youth. We are not given financial security when it comes to credit facilities to tap in our resources in agriculture. But the moment we are given that chance, we'll be able to explore and even expand our horizon in the agriculture sector, because we find that most people right now are leaving their rural areas, going to urban areas with that notion that it's only in the urban areas where there's better employment opportunities. But when they go there, they find themselves they're being pushed to the margins. They're staying in the low-income areas like the slum areas, where they are forced to eat anything that comes to their table without even minding if it will impact on their health. So it's important to integrate them in decision-making.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is your smart solution?
Well, when
the world is ready for it.
I believe the world has to be ready for us. The time is right now. We don't need to hear this narrative every now and then that the youth are the future leaders of tomorrow. I think the future leaders of tomorrow is today. Mm-hmm. What I believe is that I can be able to advocate for nutrition education. Me as a young person, I'd like to know that if I can be able to get food that I can put on the table, I need to know it is balanced, right, from all the vitamins and micronutrients that are required to make somebody have a healthy and sustainable living. Yeah, nutrition education is paramount in all these situations.
So young people can play a very important role.
Yes, they can play an important role. By them being the advocate of nutrition education, I'll be able, the issue is we are tech savvy. The young people are the tech-savvy generation when you look at that perspective, because we receive ideas more quickly than the older generation. If I'm given that chance or voice to sit at a platform where I can dialogue with the other African leaders or the global leaders, I'll be able to raise the concerns of that person down there in the village who is not able to speak for themselves.
We heard also a lot of smart solutions and inspiring ideas today. Mm-hmm. Was there something that inspired you?
If we look at Eva Kaufman's video, I'd say that she's advocating for people to embrace regenerative agriculture. For me, that is a new concept, and it's a concept that if people can be able to embrace it, we'll be able to exist with the nature and also try to integrate agriculture by having to live together with the natural system and protecting it.
So, yeah. What are your plans for the future? When you have your degree in Wageningen, what would you like to do?
Well, personally, when I go back home, I like to be an advocate of the young people.
Yes.
Back home, there are those people voiceless. I'll go to the margins where people are not heard. That's where we need to start. They say change begins at home. If I go home, I'll be able to be a policy influencer, talk to the government at the table, try and reason with them and tell them this is what is happening and we need a call of action. We're tired of this narrative every now and then we're the futures of tomorrow. I think the tomorrow is now for us.
Yeah, so the hope is sitting next to me. The future is sitting next to me.
Yes, the future is.
This afternoon, the UCAS and Food First are organizing a youth event in Wageningen. So tell us, what is going to happen?
Oh yeah, the United Community of African Students is organizing a youth summit, a youth conference called Digitization of Young People's Opportunity in Agriculture. The kind of activities that are going to happen is we're going to have a plenary session with like interesting speakers, the ones shown on the screen. Then we are going to have workshop events where we'll discuss on the way forward concerning the opportunities about the African youth and also how we can integrate policymakers in it. Then again, another thing that is going to happen is that we are going to have like an outcome of the event is a policy brief that will be shared with the Wageningen University and Research and also other development partners in the agri-food sector. Yeah, for call of action to happen.
So, busy program. Thank you for this moment. You will join us later at the table, and I can inform our viewers that if they have any questions for you, for Jacqueline, please ask them by using the chat.
Thanks
you
so much.
for now.
Okay.
So, yes, earlier on, we discussed the important role of knowledge, policy, design, and partnerships to work towards necessary change. The role of young people is crucial. We will meet some new guests later. But before we do, we're going live to Ghana. It's a great pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Bram Wits, the Agriculture Councillor. Good morning, Bram.
Hi. Good morning.
How good of you to join us. Where are you in Ghana and what do you do there?
Right now I'm sitting in my own home, as many people around the world do. My home is in Accra, the capital of Ghana. And for the last 2.5 years, I've been working in West Africa as an agricultural councillor. So representing the Ministry of Agriculture, Food, Nature and Food Quality of the Netherlands in Nigeria, Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire.
Yeah, and could you describe a typical working day for us? When you're not at home?
Yeah, luckily this is not my typical working day. The best working days are on the field, meeting local farmers, joining Dutch companies that are really going into this part of the world to see how they can sell their products, but also really invest in the local private sector.
Yes. Can you illustrate some differences between the Netherlands and Ghana?
Yeah, well, we just also saw a movie of tomatoes being grown in a greenhouse or even in a museum.
Yeah.
If you go to the local market here, Akblobloshi is the big market of Accra, for example, where lorries of tomatoes come in over very bad roads, driving for 8 to 9 hours, sometimes all the way from Burkina Faso. And the tomatoes are packed in wooden crates of 1 by 1 by 1 meter. And then the markets are run by, that's the good thing actually, they're run by women, the so-called market queens. Yeah. But they decide the price for the farmers. They only look at size and price, and a discussion about quality or sustainable production is rarely being had here in this part of the world. So there's a lot of ground to cover still.
Yeah, and copy-paste doesn't work.
No. I think that's been said a couple of times around the table, and I think that's especially true also for West Africa. And it goes both ways. West Africa is going to see a huge population growth. We're going to double in the next couple of decades, with cities becoming huge. Accra will have 20 million inhabitants. Lagos, by the current projections, will have 80 million inhabitants. So we really have to work on a system that has its own view on what kind of crops you want to produce here, what kind of taste we need here. And I think especially on the crops, West Africa can also be a solution to the world, because climate change is real here, but it's also, the climate is already pretty harsh in the tropical lowlands. So it is too wet when it's wet, and it's too dry when it's dry. And we have crops like fonio here, for example, that are really grown for millions of years in these environments. So they are really strong and can maybe even become a part of the answer for our world global question that we all face.
Yeah. So, and what can you do as an agricultural councillor?
Yeah, I think what I try to do, and that's what also. So I'm wrecking my brain listening to the conversation, because we all talk about the systems, eh?
Yeah.
And I fully agree with looking starting every intervention with that perspective. But at the intervention level, you also have to become very practical. So I agree in the sense that we should not have a tunnel vision of only trying to produce a crop and then not knowing who's going to buy it, how it's going to change the power structures. At the same time, when you try to improve production, for examples, tomatoes or fonio in West Africa, you also really have to work on the basics, work with farmers, try to integrate the value chain. And then sometimes you need to really have to make a practical solution between the system thinking and the interaction. And sometimes for me, that is linking a company like East-West Seeds or Rijkswaan to that local partner that Simon Groot was talking about in the Filipinos that really kickstarted something 40 years ago. So really connecting companies. It can be organizing a study to really change the narrative in West Africa. But in my case, it's also really important to link with the big power brokers like the World Bank, the African Development Bank, that are really going to do the big investments. And I try to inspire them with Dutch cooperative thinking. And I try to link them with really special and amazing young entrepreneurs and visionaries like we have in West Africa, and like Catherine is I think is a great example as well.
But is it difficult to seduce them?
I think everybody is willing and everybody sees the urgency, but everybody's also very much caught up in their day-to-day business. So I think therefore days like this, to step out of it and really hear from each other are very important. And my takeaway for today is I'm going to organize an event like you have right now in the Netherlands next year in Ghana as well, really trying to connect the Fonio cooperative from northern Ghana with big companies like Nestle that are trying to really invest in their value chains, to really bring these people together and do that with nice food and a good drink and an inspiring speaker. I think really is a kickstart of relationships, and relationships at the end of the day change the world, I think.
Yeah. Nice food. I can see you can use some books from the shelf behind you. You have some nice...
Yeah. My starting journey in the food system was through food. So we love to cook in my house, and it's really important to also, especially in countries like this, sit down when you go to the farmers, talk to them and understand their perspective, and at the same time keep your eyes on the ball in having a system in 20 or 30 years here, so even beyond the Sustainable Development Goals, that work in West Africa.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you. Bramwitz.
It was great having you. Thanks, bye.
Bye. And now, I would like to welcome and to introduce our new guest who will join us for the second round around the table. Carol Gripnau, Program Director, Green Society at HIVOS, and Suzanne van Tilburg, Global Head Food and Agri Networks at Rabobank. And still with us, Jacqueline O'Reilly, the representative from UCAS. And if you have any questions for our guests, please do so by use chat, because they're all willing to answer them. Carol, let's start with you. Welcome. And could you please briefly introduce yourself and tell us what kind of organization HIVOS is?
Yeah, well, to start with HIVOS. HIVOS, a humanist organization for social change. As our name already indicates, we very much value humanist values. So we're very people-centered and really believe in the full potential of people. We strive for a free, fair and sustainable world, working in over 30 countries across the globe with many organizations. Most of them we consider change makers, so ranging from activists to civil society organizations and impact-driven entrepreneurs. But we do also collaborate with governments, local, national, researchers and private sector. Yeah, and one of our main focus areas is sustainable food, because we feel it's very much connected to people's lives and opportunities.
Yeah. And as HEVOS, you work in Uganda and Zambia on innovative partnerships and inclusions of citizens to accelerate the SDG 2 results. Could you please elaborate on this?
Yes, well, I think a lot of the speakers today already highlighted the fact that not only the food challenges we're seeing today are highly interconnected, so it has links with climate change, with poverty and so on. I won't repeat it. But also that local food systems or food systems are different everywhere. So it's really about how to find local solutions. So over the past 5 years, we've worked in 4 countries, bringing together different organizations, different stakeholders, really from producers, consumers, women, street food vendors, but also local authorities, researchers, and so on, and really explore like what are the major challenges they are facing in their own locality. So we will soon see a video from Uganda. And what you see in the western part of Uganda is really what we call the paradox of the plenty. It's a context with very rich natural resources. It's considered the food basket of Uganda. At the same time, we see 40% of the children being stunted, which is above the national average. So it's really a paradox.
Yes.
We see poverty. We see also the rural towns being flooded with imported processed foods. And you see a government struggling to deal with rapid urbanization and really increasingly seeing the need to rethink how they organize their whole food system. So we brought those actors together because there was really a sense of urgency.
Yes.
We had also a very trusted partner on the ground who was able to connect the different stakeholders.
Exactly, because I think that is the difficult part, to connect all these different stakeholders.
Yeah.
And to what I said, to seduce them and to convince them that it's important to collaborate.
Yeah, I think the importance is not so much the issue, but then how do you do it? And how do you create an environment where everybody is able to speak out? I think in the Netherlands we have a very equal society. So here we can easily interact, whether you're from a private sector or government or a citizen. I think we have quite equal relationships. That's not the case in many countries. So if you really want to understand the struggles of small-scale producers or of poor urban consumers, of women, they need to be part of that conversation. And you need to have really insights in what are the challenges they're facing. I mean, what we found out is people know what a healthy diet is. But it's really, they're not able to really apply that in practice. They're cash-strapped, they need to sell their produce to export markets and so on. So you need to understand the daily challenges people face and need to create an environment where they're able to speak out and where their reality is really put center stage in the discussions.
Well, maybe we can take a look at the video.
Yeah.
So I'm calling upon all the leaders in Uganda to make all the platforms of food.
We have started having People's Parliament coming together to discuss issues of diet and food.
So yes, that's why I decided, no, let me join to teach other people.
Okubala nga food parliament lwempita transport ngenda nsobola okuba nga nzigusa ebirowoozo byange eri eggwanga lyange bandirumirira.
Now we are trying to come up with the bylaws which are within the mandate of the district and the lower local governments.
Eba bitekeke komu tuddemu mu nsigo yaffe tusobola okulaba tukuuma tutya ensigo yaffe ennansi eri emmere enkolerere bagiwere.
Yes, something that I want to share with the whole Ugandans. Food is good because food is life.
Gamba tulina kudda kulima kunima nga tukuuma n'obutonde bw'ensi ne tulima nga tulya bulungi.
People should stick on the indigenous foods. We should not shy away and try to shed off what used to be with us from the old days.
Naye nga twagala okukuuma nnyaffe Uganda n'abazzukulu bagisangewo nga ekyali power of Africa.
So, beautiful video. Jacqueline from UCAS, would you like to reflect or to react on
Yeah, I'd say that the video is so insightful and educative. They are calling for a platform where people can be able to dialogue and bring the perspective of both men and women on the table to have an equal chance of decision making and trying to tailor-make their needs according to the kind of problems they're facing.
Yes, but because you explained earlier today that it's difficult, the time isn't maybe, or the climate ready for this, to hear all the different stakeholders and to include the youngsters and the women. And so what do you think of this?
I would say that when you look at, I'm an advocate of the partnership of global goals, because when you look right from this SDG number 1, which is no poverty, to SDG number 16 of peace, justice and sustainable institutions, we find that there's no SDG that can be attained without having to have partnerships. So I believe if you can have that multi-stakeholder partnership number 17, where we include everyone right from the community, we have the governments, we have stakeholders like the civil societies and also the international community, I believe we'll be able to achieve this, but we are still somewhere within the gap of achieving sustainable development goals if young people are not included in the table for dialogue.
Okay.
Yes.
Suzanne van Tilburg, can you please tell a little bit about yourself and the work you're doing at the Rabobank?
Yes, I have been with the Dutch government first for over 20 years as a diplomat, also in agriculture and food, in worldwide embassies. And then I switched to Rabobank because I was into touch on the Banking for Food strategy, which is the new international strategy of Rabobank, in which the focus is on food and agri, and also to focus on the key transitions that are necessary to really make improvements in sustainability and the poverty and all the other SDGs that are very valuable to us as a bank.
Yes.
And why Rabobank? Because I was surprised, to be honest, and I think still many people are surprised. What is a bank doing in these type of transitions?
What is a bank doing?
Yeah. Let me ask the questions. To be honest, I was very surprised on the footprint of Rabobank, the presence already in itself in the most important food producing and food consuming countries. I didn't know that, being Dutch, and I knew Rabobank as a Dutch cooperative bank.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not only the countries where we are, but also the different stakeholders and value chain representatives that we are servicing. Ranging from 2,000 corporates worldwide, amongst which the top 17 of the global dairy companies, to the 5 million smallholder farmers that Rabobank Foundation is supporting.
Because exactly, what can you do for the smallholder farmers?
Yeah, well, what we can do is try to get a grip of the transitions, try to understand the transitions, and try to see how we can think about the solutions and enable farmers worldwide, including smallholder farmers, to really address those solutions and being involved actively. In different means. We can organize dialogues, for instance, on food loss and waste reduction. Food losses are many in Africa, especially also. So what we do is organize roundtables where we get all the stakeholders around the table and see how we can together solve this. But at the same time, in the Netherlands, we have a lot of food waste, which is on the consumption side the big problem. Where we, with, let's say, catering services, restaurants and hotels, we can organize food waste challenges and have online trainings, for instance, to really make them more aware of the waste that is a big problem. So it's enabling solutions and it's engaging. And I think what is very crucial, because we know the market, because we have all these stakeholders in the value chain, we are able to really come up with value chain finance solutions because we understand the markets, we know the needs of the markets, and as NGOs, you know the needs of the people, and that's why it's so important to connect together and see how we can together find the solutions that are necessary for all the stakeholders. I think what we want to do is to see how we can engage everybody around the globe, including the younger generation that you already addressed, with the youngsters from 15 to 17 years old included, because that's the Generation Z, as we call it, the next generation. And we are talking today about the SDGs and the implementation in 2030. But in 2030, they will be the new future leaders. They will be 25, 30 years old, the new CEOs maybe of companies. And maybe it's good to show a little video to address that, because we will be talking about the Food Systems Summit many times today.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's nice to show it first.
Yes, please.
Yes.
For example, new business models and innovations needed to be embraced. As the leading global food and agri-bank, Rabobank is determined to contribute to overcoming challenges and seizing opportunities. Well, why only listen to them while they could also listen to us? Don't dictate your solutions, but let us be a part of the solution. I mean, we are the leaders of the future and we have something to say.
So, Jacqueline, I think you like this video.
Yeah, the video is so interesting because I think already it's like trying to educate or give views concerning what I've been talking about including youth. We find that, like the social media, what has been just highlighted there, this is where life is happening right now among the young generation. We are tech-savvy generation. Whenever we get any innovative ideas, we can post it on social media and circulate it among our peers or within the platforms that we engage in. Through that, we get to do awareness creation, and maybe somebody will feel like this idea fits according to my need will join the bandwagon in trying to spread the news, and maybe so many people will come together and create innovative networks that can be able to create a sustainable solution according to the needs that are happening in the society. Actually, if I can look at the pandemic has showed us that food system has got some gaps in it that we need to connect everyone, right from the farmer to the last chain of consumer, which is us.
So you almost see it as an opportunity to build better networks after the pandemic.
Yes.
Yes? Do you agree?
Well, yeah, that's exactly the intention, and that's why I'm happy that we could show this. It's a sneak preview, by the way, because at 5 p.m. This afternoon in the UN Relay of Food Systems, which is going on for 24 hours, also today is the real launch by Barry Martin, our board member. And then there will be a hackathon series and a social media campaign, because we indeed agree we have to connect together, and sometimes these issues can be quite technical. Yeah. So, especially when it comes to finance solutions, for instance, as a bank, we realize that it's very difficult for youngsters to understand the problems that we are talking about. What kind of problems do you have when you have data gaps? Or, for instance, what is true cost accounting? Nobody at that age would know, but they have to realize that it's important to also incorporate the societal costs. And that there are costs which have to be calculated and made more transparent, so that we can be very open about the real cost of the food that we are producing. And that's something I think that will be helpful if we get the feedback from the youngsters on what does it do to them and how can they find their own way of expressing the value that they add for nature, for instance, or for biodiversity, because they feel it already, but they cannot express it yet. And that's why, as a bank, we think it's important to try to translate, so to speak, these issues and co-create the solutions.
Yes. And Carol, do you have to add anything to that? Do you recognize this?
Yes, I think, I mean, there is definitely a great role for youngsters to play in this whole debate. Also because I think young people often bring a longer-term perspective. I mean, they are the future. I mean, you still have a long time in your life. So, and having that long-term perspective, I think, is really critical in addressing the key food challenges we're facing today. I think we talk about 2030, but 10 years is very short period to really fundamentally change the food system. So I think we need to find that balance between short-term actions that can be done and implemented while taking a longer-term perspective. I think also COVID is showing us that we cannot afford to lose this momentum in terms of, yes, there is definitely a need for short-term actions, like we're seeing in the Netherlands and across the globe. But we need to do and organize them in such a way that at the same time we build a far more inclusive, healthy and sustainable food system.
But then you have to make very, very difficult choices, I think, at this moment, because there's also...
Yeah, there's always trade-offs, of course. That's what we also try to make more transparent, and we think that's an important issue also for the Food Systems Summit, that you have to be transparent about the trade-offs. You cannot have a smallholder income growing while at the same time maybe investing in nature or biodiversity. Sometimes there will be a choice to make, and at least if you are transparent about this, then people can consider this and also create perspective for their own business, which is very crucial.
Of course, you have a collective ambition, and I think, in what way could you help each other, or are you already helping each other, as HIVOS in the Rabobank? Is there already something going?
Yeah, we do not directly collaborate, but for instance, as HIVOS, we do collaborate with banks, local banks, MFIs, microfinance institutions across the globe who provide access to finance for smallholders, for women, and so on. But we also collaborate, for instance, with the Triodos Bank. So we jointly invest in what we call front-runner agri-food companies across the globe. And I think that's, well, quite comparable also to what Rabobank is doing. So.
Yeah, we already said we should tear down this screen. And exactly. Also, I mean, in practice, because I think, and that's really something that goes at the... I think it's the essence of things also when you talk about being engaged together and working together. There is still an allergy for the private sector in many international societal worlds where they think the reality is different than the commercial reality. And we also try to pinpoint that it's so crucial to understand that there needs to be an economically viable basis, a business model, a business case under every company, because it can only be sustainable that way.
But why do you think this allergy exists?
Because of the past, because of the fossil society that we were all living in and we all participated in actively. And now I think you mentioned it before, the time is right. Now I really think that people realize that this cannot go on any longer. And of course the Life on Earth movie of David Attenborough is very helpful in that as well, to get outreach worldwide to understand the problem. But I see it from a very close perspective that it's still very difficult to give commercial companies in the private sector the credits for wanting to contribute to the society. And I think it would be very helpful if we could indeed tear down the screens and sit around the table and try to get to the same ambitions, because that's the only way where we can showcase what is really necessary, what is working, what is not working.
Well, Mirteel, do you see Rabobank, HIVOS and digitalization come together?
Yeah, I think there's well, let's bring this wall down. But not only HIVOS, I mean, also the young people movement. I think that's a great angle probably to also allow these organizations to work together. I mean, let's do it through empowering the youth in different parts of the world.
I have a question from Lisette. Question for all table guests. What are access to finance solutions which you have seen in practice that work for both the young and the financial institutions? Yeah. Well?
I don't think if I can take that question, because the word finance is in it,
Yes.
I think it's not only about young specifically. It needs to be inclusive. So we target, of course, financial solutions that also contribute to the livelihood of youngsters. But maybe a different perspective. In Australia, we have a large presence, like 60 banks throughout the country. So Australians think we're an Australian bank. And we are talking actively with youngsters about succession. Because that's a problem worldwide, that there are not many young people that think that farming is sexy enough. So they really want to know what's in it for them, what is their perspective. So we have active conversations and dialogues about that. And at the other end of the scale, when you talk about transitions, healthy diets is very crucial. It's also in your slogan of today. But when you talk about obesity, for instance, we have to be careful not to be too prescriptive to youngsters, but to make ourselves strong and to really voice their voices. That public funding and awareness budgets, for instance, will be repurposed, redirected, that there will be a repurposing of subsidies also to make the access to healthy and fresh food much bigger. So there are different ways, and as a stakeholder in those dialogue processes, I think it's the biggest added value that we can have.
Okay, we're maybe very short because we.
Yeah, because I think the whole issue of access to finance is a critical one, especially in developing countries. I think there are many MFIs and microfinance institutions, but what is really difficult for people, for entrepreneurs, is to grow their business. There's a huge gap in financing, especially local startups that want to grow their business, and especially those that have different models, different business models, the models we need today to really transition the food system.
So how can we help them? Or
create investment facilities that really support those innovative entrepreneurs in developing countries.
And provide access to insights and to markets, not specifically to finance only. If we can address the data gaps that are there and the finance gaps, we can open that up and make it more transparent. We can provide access to markets as well.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your contribution. You've given us plenty of food for thought. And, hope to see you the coming next 10 years. Keep up the good work and tear down the screen, I would say. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
So, we've almost reached the end of this part of the program, but before we break, I'd like to invite Mirtil to share some final thoughts with us. So, Mirtil, what did you think of the event so far?
Yeah, well, it leaves me with a lot of energy and inspiration. I think that the calls for action, the calls for system change are, of course, important. And I think that many people are aware of that. But what I think has been also very appropriate in this morning is to really look at personal level, like what can we do ourselves? I mean, I even teach my children and myself also that if we don't start with us, ourselves, not throwing away the food that can still be eaten, try to decrease like food loss. Or I changed into becoming a vegetarian last year because of the needs of decreasing meat consumption, which might contribute maybe to a decrease in cutting woods in the Amazon area and as such climate change. So think of what can we do ourselves, but also, it's very clear that we have to do this together. And the different actors, both here in the Netherlands as well as in developing countries, collaborate and come up with smart solutions to bring these changes. So I think that we saw many interesting examples. Also, a lot of questions were left, which is good also because we can work with these also. And we are moving now into the afternoon program.
Exactly. So what can we expect?
We have like 5 breakout sessions. People have registered already for these breakout sessions, but if you want to move based on what you've seen now in the morning program and the discussions, you're very welcome to do so. So we will look, well, you have the information there, but there are breakout sessions that focus a bit more on the horticulture sector, other breakout sessions that focus more on assessments being done regarding the COVID-19 crisis. We will look into design and urban and rural planning. So there's, I think that there's a lot of interesting information there. There will be very practical, very interactive, and I really invite you all just to attend one of them at least. After that, we will have our closing session, which we have like a little surprise. We have a very high-level person addressing a note to us, so stay connected. And after that, we have a panel that will discuss why the Food System Summit of last year is important for policymakers, for private sector, for civil society organizations, and for research. And there also there's an opportunity for you to pose questions and to participate in the discussion.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mirtio. Good start as a director and as a way to get to know each other. Well, we are at the end of this program. It was an honor to be a presenter today. And I think afternoon sessions will start in about 30 minutes.
That's right.
30 minutes. Okay, well, and thank you, all those who've been watching us. And I hope you will have a very inspiring afternoon. Bye-bye.
See you later.